Good morning, everyone. One thing I'd like you to think about when we're talking about recruiting and retention is that it's something that's continuous. A lot of times people just want to focus on it when the market's bad, but it's really something as an organization that you need to be intentional about and proactive about. Because, of course, if you don't have your employees, you can't provide your service. So you really want to make sure that's a focus. So here's what we're going to talk about: current conditions, what you can offer, what are you offering your current employees and people you're recruiting, some sourcing ideas, and retaining employees. Now as you know, we have a labor shortage. We have a very tight labor market, and there are a lot of things happening over the years that have gotten us to where we are today. But I just wanted to hit on a couple statistics and some interesting facts to help give you an idea of why we're in the position we're in. It's interesting, if you look at the unemployment rate as a country, we're at 3.6%. That's almost to pre-pandemic levels. Okay, in February 2020, we were at 3.5%. But where the big difference is, if you notice, back prior to the pandemic, we had about 6.9 million job openings. Now we have 10.7 million job openings, and that just came back down from 11.3 in May. So that means even if we put every single unemployed person back to work, we still have millions of jobs to fill. So what the heck happened, right? Where is everybody? What's going on? Well, of course, COVID had a huge impact. If you look at the third quarter of 2019 versus 2020, an additional 3.2 million baby boomers left the workforce. That is a lot of people. And when the pandemic happened, we ended up with a bunch of disengaged people who aren't even working. People took a look at their lives, at their jobs, made decisions to stay home, to leave the workforce. Maybe they were caregivers. Maybe they realized they didn't need a second income. Maybe they saved money and they're taking time off. But we have a huge amount of disengaged people out there that we need to get back into the workforce. And it's also interesting to note that even prior to COVID, immigration has really been declining. Real legal immigration is very, very important to supplement our labor force. So that's also impacting. So these are just a few ideas and statistics of why we're in the position we are today. Again, we could probably spend days talking about a lot of things like birth rates and labor force participation and all that stuff. But I think these stats really kind of help bring it home as to why we can't find anybody right now, which most of you are probably experiencing. So I want to talk a little bit about what you're offering your employees and are you being competitive? There's lots of things to look at. The first thing I like to look at is, when you're recruiting people, what's your hook? How are you getting people in the door? Your brand and your image matters. What is your mission? People want to have a purpose in their jobs, and especially the millennials and the younger generation, they want to make an impact on the community. So you want to be focusing on your websites, on your social media, and your job advertising, what you can provide them and how doing public service and helping the citizens in the community is a positive. That might help you get some of that younger generation in. And of course, benefits, right? Everyone wants government jobs for job security and benefits. That's what the statistics say. So I'm thinking you're probably doing a pretty decent job with benefits. I know there's a lot of different size organizations in here. Not everyone might not be able to offer healthcare, which is super important, but maybe you consider something like an HRA. I'm pretty sure most of you have some decent retirement plans in place. People are looking for life insurance and disability insurance for income protection. Paid time off, of course, is huge. And I know a lot of the clients I work with, it seems like you do a pretty good job of vacation and sick time and having plenty of time off. But you want to make sure that you have enough of it first and that, people don't have to wait a year to even get a day off. So take a look at your policy. And of course, holidays are important. An employee assistance program, these are very popular. And I'm amazed at the amount of people that don't have these. They're fairly affordable too. It's a really nice tool for when your employees are experiencing personal problems to be able to refer them to someone. Your managers really, really appreciate this tool because no one is really equipped to help people understand what their personal problems. So if you have an 800 number in counseling and you have website resources, that can be a really cheap, nice benefit for your employees. And of course, educational assistance is huge as well, whether it's tuition assistance or loan repayment. There's a lot of different things you can do out there to help get people in the door. Compensation. I know it can be tough to be competitive, especially with, private companies, but you at least need to be aware. Are you paying market? And right now it's tough because people are paying way above market. It's crazy out there. But a lot of associations have surveys, or if you go on enough free websites, you can probably get a decent idea. Most of you probably talk to other people in other organizations, and that's how you know what they're paying. If you're having some trouble, you maybe can't get your salary up to where it needs to be, maybe consider sign-on bonuses when you're doing hiring. A simple 1,000, 2,000 bonus, maybe you can then get that person in the door. And if they like the work and enjoy the organization, they're willing to stay at that salary with the good benefits. Of course, work hours and flexibility are really, really important. So we need to get less rigid, if you will. I know certain jobs you can't do that, but can you change your starting and ending times? Can you have 30-hour work weeks for some people instead of 40? Can you have a reduced work week, maybe 4 days a week, or give half day Fridays? Whatever you can do to give flexibility, you need to do, because the private sector is definitely doing these things. And of course, I have to mention remote work. I realize there's a lot of jobs in here that can't be done remotely, but when they can, be open to that. It opens up the geography for recruiting. It makes it a lot easier. It gives people, hope that they don't have to be in the office every day. And it's a real mindset change. You have to go from, managing how work is done to managing outcomes. Does it really matter how it's getting done? Just, is it getting done? Is it getting done well? So it's definitely a mindset change. And of course, career development. You want to make sure that you're looking at your current staff and helping them learn and grow, giving them growth opportunities and educational opportunities, certifications, whatever it is. Make sure you're talking to your people and, looking at their career growth and development. So application and interview process, sometimes the government jobs get bogged down process and detail and lack of technology and those things. And I realize there's certain things that have to be done, like with the school districts and background checks and all those kind of things. But you really need to take a look at your application and interview process from the candidate's experience, right? Is it simple to apply? Is it fairly quick to apply? Or is it this long, cumbersome, process? Are you still using a paper application? I mean, that could be pretty painful, especially for a young person to fill out a paper application. And then your interview process. Are you keeping it moving? Are you making them come in 4 or 5 times for interviews? Is it taking weeks? You're going to lose people if you're doing that. There's many, many opportunities out there, and people need answers quickly. So I would make sure when you're doing your recruiting and you're interviewing that you're moving quickly, that you're constantly communicating and staying in touch. I hear all the time when I'm doing recruiting, I never hear back. I don't know what's going on. It's been weeks. Am I even in the picture anymore? So make sure you're talking to people. And of course, onboarding. A lot of people leave within the first few months if you don't bring them on properly. So think about, are you doing orientation? Is management meeting people? Are they meeting coworkers? Are they talking about, what your work goals and expectations are? Do you have some work for them? Or do you start a new employee and they're sitting at their desk, staring at the clock, wondering what the heck to do? Assign a buddy. That we do that in our firm. It's called a PTC, and it is like a great program because new people have tons of questions and they always feel like they're bugging people, right? Well, they can bug the buddy. This is who they go to, they talk to, and they have that resource, because starting a new job is tough. We all know that, and we all have questions. So that really helps transition someone into a new role. And I really think if you're not doing it, after a couple months, sit down with your new hires and talk to them. What's going right? What's going wrong? What can we do better? How are we meeting your expectations? Formally sit down and talk them through any issues that they have. And they'll really appreciate that. And that will help with your retention. So everybody knows about job boards, right? But if your recruitment strategy is to put your position on your website and Indeed and go home, sleep, cross your fingers and hope for something, you need more than that. Indeed's great. You should absolutely be putting your jobs out there. That's where everybody goes, but you need more. And there's lots of job boards out there, depending on your organizations, what could be a fit. And it takes some testing, trying different ones out, see what works for you. One thing about Indeed that's nice too is you might not be aware they have a subscription service. I think you can do it monthly, and you can actually go into their database of resumes and search for people. And that's really nice because then you contact them proactively through Indeed and they get back to you and you can set up an interview. It's sometimes a more passive candidate, which can be a little bit better to recruit. So employee referral programs, this is a great way to use your current staff to help get people in the door. And we know how much, recruiting is just so expensive, right? Whether you're advertising, using headhunters, whatever it is, to pay your employees a few $1,000s to refer someone, it's a really nice incentive. If it starts to get a little bigger, like in the thousands, you probably want to do some up front and then some after like 3 or 6 months or so, just to make sure the person actually is working and showing up and all that good stuff. But definitely consider employer referral programs. They're super popular. I know some of you are schools, but you definitely want to be involved in schools. And I'm not talking about just going to one job fair, right? You should be on a first name basis with professors, with teachers, with career centers. You should be talking to alumni networks, going to clubs and speaking to students. You want to be totally engrossed in the schools. So students get interested in public service and they want to come work for you. You have to get out there. You can't just sit back and hope that, the younger generation is going to come along. And of course, interns are great. Anybody use interns? Oh, right. Okay. A lot of people. I'm sure I know schools have a student teaching program, but interns are a great way, to build your staff. And it's kind of like a try before you buy type thing. And it's just a really great experience for everyone. So this might sound a little weird, but, we get desperate, right? So think about your former employees that left on good terms, right? People you liked, you hated to see leave. Go back years, literally brainstorm, get a list together, and think about if it makes sense to contact any of them. Maybe they left because they had young children. Maybe they moved out of the area and came back. But you have to start thinking beyond normal tactics. I encourage everyone to give that a try. Of course, I'm going to say use social media on here because that's very, very important. And I'm like a hypocrite because I'm not a social media person, but I understand how important it is, and our marketing folks just take care of it for us. So I'm spoiled. But you have a website, maybe a Facebook page, LinkedIn. You want to make sure that you're posting jobs out there. We know how quickly one thing is shared, right? So just think of the power of your job shared. And LinkedIn's actually a pretty good resource too. It takes some time, and I know everybody's busy, but you can search for people you want out there. People that would fit your profile for a position, and you can connect with them. And when you connect, you can actually write a few sentences in there. And, you can even send out a little note like, hey, we're hiring. Do you know anyone? You might be a little bit hesitant to do that, but trust me, everybody's doing that to your people. They're getting those notes. So it can't hurt, like a one-time note, just to see if you get any nibbles off of that. Use social media that's out there. And we do things like we create a template for our new hires. So we're like, here, go post this. And it says, hey, I'm happy I'm at SCK. I got a new job, and then they share it and get shared again and again and again. And then maybe you get some leads off of that. So again, this is being proactive and creative. This may seem a little bit obvious, but, you need to think about where people hang out, that you like to hire. Maybe you need a part-timer. Do you ever check out with the moms clubs or maybe AARP, retirees? You just need a few hours a week. Think about that. Or there may be some coffee shops or local gyms or things that you can post some notices on. People actually do kind of read that stuff. So again, it's just about like doing everything you possibly can and hoping to get leads. And it may take you years for a lead to pan out, but that's why you start and then you keep going. Current employees. And I put this on here because I think some organizations are really bad at letting the internal people know when there are job openings, right? You immediately go to the outside. And there may be people in your organization who want a new opportunity, who maybe just need some training or additional education. Why not look at them first and then backfill that position? So make sure you are looking at your current staff and not just immediately running to the outside. I have independent contractors on here. That's kind of obvious. Sometimes you just need project work versus a full-time employee. So don't forget, that's always an option. And I really encourage you, you need to make this real. So I know you might not be the HR people, but who's ever handling HR, they'll hate this, but take all this information back to them and tell them what they need to be doing. You should have a spreadsheet, a living, breathing spreadsheet of all your leads, right? For recruiting, big, small leads, anything. And that should always be something that's being worked. So you know who to follow up with. You're never going to remember all the different people you talk to when you're doing recruiting. You have to make it real. Some of you may have software or applicant tracking systems that have lead functionality in them. Those are nice. You can put it in there. But at a minimum, start tracking these things. So, You've probably heard the phrase that managers leave jobs or employees leave managers, not jobs. And there's actually a lot of truth to that. So when you're thinking about employee retention, one of the first things I encourage you to do is, as a management team, take a look at how you're being. Okay. Jim Clifton, who is the CEO of Gallup, he has said that the most important decision any organization makes is who you name manager. And that's because manager sets the culture and the tone in the company. And it's so important that leadership is engaging people, talking to people, recognizing, empowering people. Are you communicating? Do they even know what's going on in your organization? Are you being fair to people? This is where you need to start, especially if you have a lot of turnover. I realize there's other things that apply to turnover as well, but truly the management really will affect retention in your company. Stay interviews. Anybody do stay interviews? Anybody ever heard of this? Yeah, so what you do is you talk to your good staff who are still there, not an exit interview, a stay interview, to find out what's going on, right? What can we do better? So here are some questions. Why have you chosen to remain with us? What are you passionate about? What do you look forward to? And you'll get answers like lunch and that kind of stuff, but that's okay. You're having the conversation. Is there anything, that happens that gets you really down when you leave work? I love that question. Do you have skills we don't know about? That goes kind of back to thinking about what else they can do in the organization. And I really like the last question. What might tempt you to leave the organization? And you only want to do this if you're actually going to act on this information. Don't do it just to talk about it. Okay. But take your good staff, your top staff, and have these conversations. And you'll probably be surprised what you hear. And then that'll give you some idea for some retention ideas. We talked about this, of course, with your current staff. You want to be doing hybrid work and flexible schedules wherever possible. You really need to take a look at compensation. I know that's a tough topic and you have budgets and it's just not easy, but you have to be careful. One, that you're somewhat competitive, right? But two, about salary compression. Has anyone had to hire somebody in at a higher rate than the current staff? Has that ever happened? Yeah, reality is that happens. And that is really tough. And employees talk about their salaries and they're allowed to talk about their salaries. So you want to be really careful if you're doing that. You want to address it. And I mean, we've had those issues and we've adjusted salaries for our employees because it's really not fair to pay someone that's the same more money than someone who's already working for you. And why aren't you paying that person more if you can afford to pay the new hire that? So really think about that. We talked about this a little bit. Make sure you're assigning a buddy to your newer staff. And mentor programs are great. Anybody have a mentor program? No? Okay. And it doesn't need to be super formal or anything, but having your younger staff connect with older staff and really be able to learn more about the overall of the organization and talk more about career development, it's beneficial for the mentor and the mentee. They're really nice programs to have. So I'd encourage you to put those type of things in place to help with succession and retention. So this is just a summary. So with your recruitment, you want to go back. If you're at the recruitment people, tell the people, make sure you're being proactive. You want to sit down and really understand your current needs as well as your future needs, at least a year or two out, and develop a strategy. Your recruitment strategy should be talked about at every meeting. It should be constantly a focus of your discussions. Brainstorm. How are we getting people? Where are we getting people? How are we at filling our openings right now? What else can we do? You really have to get creative. And if you have a super old, boring, slow application and interview process, really take a look at that. With retention, management, start talking to your employees if you're not doing it right now. Conduct those stay interviews. Take maybe, depending on your size, 3 or 4 people and have those conversations. And then as a management team, decide what actions you're going to take. And like I just mentioned, fix any salary compression issues because you're probably going to lose some good people when that comes out, unfortunately.